It was just after 3 a.m. when police found Sarah McAllister's body. The 31-year-old elementary school teacher had failed to show up for work. Her car was still parked outside her apartment in suburban Wisconsin. Her bedroom door was unlocked, and inside, Sarah was dead. No signs of forced entry, no struggle, just a lifeless body on the floor, a thin red mark across her neck, and one clue investigators couldn't ignore. Her laptop was still open. Within 48 hours, what police would find on that laptop and another device nearby would blow the case wide open. It wasn't fingerprints, DNA, or CCTV that cracked it. It was a Google search, a seemingly perfect relationship. Brian Hall and Sarah had dated for just under a year. According to co-workers and neighbors, he was charming, attentive, and never raised his voice. But to those who looked closer, something was off. She mentioned once that Brian got weird when she didn't text him back right away. Sarah's best friend, Megan, later told reporters, like he'd get passive-aggressive, moody. She brushed it off. But I had a bad feeling. Police learned that in the 2 weeks leading up to her death, Sarah had Googled, "Can emotional abuse escalate? How to tell if someone is manipulating you? Can I get a restraining order for controlling behavior?" Sarah never filed a report. She never got the chance. The 911 call. On the morning of February 19th, 2022, it was Brian who called 911. "I can't get a hold of Sarah. I haven't heard from her in 2 days. I'm worried." When officers arrived at her apartment, Brian was waiting outside. He told them she'd probably just gone off to clear her head. But when they entered the unit, the story changed fast. Sarah's body was in the bedroom, partially dressed, with signs of strangulation. There were no signs of a break-in. The door hadn't been forced. There were no defensive wounds on Sarah. Police knew the killer was likely someone she knew, and Brian had just handed himself to them, figuratively, when he started to answer questions. The laptop clue. Sarah's laptop was open on her nightstand. While her most recent searches were innocent Pinterest recipes, a bookmarked podcast page, investigators dug deeper. A forensic sweep of the apartment also recovered a tablet computer, which belonged to Brian. That's when things got very, very suspicious. At 2:17 a.m. on the night Sarah died, Brian's tablet had been used to Google, "How long does it take for a body to get cold? Can strangulation be detected in autopsy? Do cops check Google searches?" But the one that sealed it? "Can bleach destroy DNA evidence?" That search was made just 14 minutes after Sarah's estimated time of death. Digital evidence becomes the crime scene. Police secured a warrant for all Brian's devices. From there, a digital forensic specialist began reconstructing a timeline. 1:52 a.m. Brian arrives at Sarah's apartment. 2:03 a.m. Security camera on a nearby building captures audio. A thud, then silence. 2:17 a.m. Brian's Google search begins. 2:31 a.m. He searches how to wipe fingerprints from fabric. 3 a.m. He leaves the apartment. His search history didn't just betray guilt, it documented his thought process in real time. He might as well have left a signed confession, the prosecutor later said. Every search, every timestamp, was a breadcrumb straight to murder. The confrontation. When detectives presented Brian with the search timeline, his demeanor cracked. At first, he denied everything. Then he blamed Sarah, claimed they'd had a fight, and she'd attacked him first. Finally, he asked for a lawyer, but the damage was done. The timeline was irrefutable. The jury later saw a digital animation recreating the crime using his search history and GPS data. When the prosecutor read aloud his search queries, the courtroom fell into stunned silence. A chilling new reality. Brian Hall was convicted of first-degree intentional homicide and tampering with digital evidence. At sentencing, Sarah's mother spoke to the court. "He didn't just kill my daughter. He Googled how to do it. He stood over her and looked up how to hide it. He was more worried about getting caught than about taking her life." The case set a new standard for prosecutors using digital behavior as evidence. Brian's conviction became a landmark example in law enforcement training manuals on how to process search history as direct proof of motive and planning. When browsing becomes confession. In the past, killers could rely on alibis, excuses, or the absence of physical evidence. But today, in the era of smartphones and Wi-Fi, your search history is your fingerprint. Google data is stored, time-stamped, and in many cases, even recoverable after deletion. Incognito mode doesn't erase everything. And in this case, Sarah's killer didn't realize that typing "how to cover up a murder" was the same as shouting it into a courtroom mic. Can fire destroy bones? It was the first search that caught investigators' attention. But it wasn't the only one. Before the 911 call, before the fire department arrived, before he ever told anyone his wife was trapped inside the house, Nathan Benson had already Googled how to cover up a murder, a house on fire, and a husband in shock. On June 6, 2021, firefighters were called to a suburban home in Cedar Bluff, Tennessee. Flames consumed the back half of the house, but the garage and kitchen were intact. Nathan Benson stood outside, shirtless and barefoot, waving frantically. "My wife, she's inside. You have to help her." Fire crews managed to suppress the flames within 30 minutes. But in the remains of the master bedroom, they found the burned body of 34-year-old Melanie Benson, curled into a fetal position. Nathan collapsed when told she didn't make it. He said he had been asleep in the guest room and didn't smell the smoke until it was too late. The fire marshal, however, wasn't convinced. The autopsy and the doubt. The preliminary autopsy report shocked the coroner's office. Melanie Benson had been dead before the fire began. She suffered blunt force trauma to the head and had no soot in her lungs, indicating she never inhaled any smoke. The burn marks came later. Police now had a homicide, and only one person had been home with her. Still, they lacked motive, weapon, and direct evidence. Nathan's alibi, that he was sleeping, couldn't be immediately disproved. The smoke alarms were melted beyond use. That's when detectives decided to seize his phone. What incognito mode left behind. Nathan believed he had hidden everything. He even told officers, "I barely use the internet. I'm old school." But digital forensics proved otherwise. While Nathan had indeed used incognito mode, his phone's cached DNS queries, a type of background internet traffic, still showed what was accessed and when. Investigators used forensic recovery software to reconstruct Nathan's private browsing history. What they found was chilling. In the hours before the fire, Nathan's phone accessed. Can fire destroy human bones? Fastest burning household chemicals. Do police check search history? Can you go to jail for killing your wife in self-defense? Will a house fire ruin DNA evidence? These searches occurred between 11:14 p.m. and 1:48 a.m. Firefighters were called at 2:03 a.m. Digital timeline reconstruction. Detectives pieced together a minute-by-minute breakdown. 11 p.m. Melanie calls her sister. She sounds tired, not distressed. 11:14 to 1:48 a.m. Nathan searches for how to cover up a body using fire. 1:50 a.m. Security camera from a neighbor's backyard shows flickering light in the Benson house. Presumed ignition point. 2:03 a.m. Nathan calls 911. 2:06 a.m. Emergency responders arrive. Forensic arson investigators confirmed the fire started using accelerants poured across the bedroom floor, which matches one of Nathan's searches. Is gasoline better than lighter fluid? The confrontation and the crack. When police confronted Nathan with the search evidence, he grew defensive. "I looked that up after the fire. Panicked. I wanted to know what would happen. That doesn't mean I did anything." But investigators also found deleted text messages between Nathan and a former coworker named Erica. Messages that showed flirtation, plans to meet up, and even Erica. "So when are you getting rid of the ball and chain?" Nathan. "Sooner than you think." Fire winking face. Erica claimed it was just a joke. Nathan said he never meant it. But prosecutors now had a motive, a digital premeditation trail, and a method of concealment. all tied together through his own phone activity. The trial technology as the star witness. In court, the defense tried to argue that search history wasn't intent, that Nathan was just curious, and his wife's death was the result of a tragic accident. A fall, not a murder. But forensic analysts testified that Melanie had 2 skull fractures, likely from a blunt object, and injuries that could not be explained by a simple fall. Then came the real blow. The jury was shown a timeline animation, reconstructing Nathan's search activity side by side with the fire's ignition time. The courtroom went silent when the prosecution read aloud. 1:37 a.m. Can you burn a body and still smell gasoline after? 1:48 a.m. Will bones turn to ash in house fire? 2:03 a.m. Nathan calls 911, claiming to be asleep. The jurors didn't even need to hear the rest. The verdict and fallout. Nathan Benson was found guilty of first-degree murder, arson, and tampering with evidence. He was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. Melanie's family started a foundation in her name to raise awareness about domestic violence hidden behind normal-looking marriages. One of the jurors later told a local news station, "He thought incognito mode made him invisible, but Google remembered everything, and we saw it all." The myth of incognito mode. This case shattered a widely believed myth that private browsing protects criminals. Here's what most people don't know. Incognito mode hides searches from your device's visible history, but not from your router, DNS logs, or Google account, if signed in. Most forensic teams can reconstruct deleted browser data if they access the device before it's wiped. In many cases, background data caching stores indirect clues about what pages were visited, even when in private mode. Nathan didn't just fail to cover his tracks. He left a digital map of his intentions, a warning for the digital age. Nathan Benson's case became a training scenario for FBI cybercrime analysts and is now part of lectures at forensic conferences on digital intent reconstruction. In a world where our lives are increasingly documented by data, from smartphones to smart homes, murderers are learning the hard way. You can't delete your digital footprint. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Hit the notification bell. What does it feel like to stab someone? That's what Eric Vance searched one night at 1:14 a.m., just hours after someone was stabbed to death in his apartment building's parking garage. He wasn't on the suspect list. He wasn't even questioned, until that search turned up and changed everything. A murder with no leads. On April 3, 2020, 27-year-old Travis Long was walking home from his late shift at a local bar in Providence, Rhode Island. Just before 11:30 p.m., he was stabbed in the lower back and collapsed behind a row of dumpsters in the garage of his apartment complex. A neighbor found his body at 6:05 a.m. There were no witnesses, no working cameras, and no apparent motive. Travis still had his wallet and phone. No signs of robbery, no gang ties, no enemies. Police initially labeled it a random act of violence and struggled to find a starting point. It looked like a dead-end case, the curious search that unlocked the case. 2 weeks later, detectives received an unusual tip from a cybercrime task force analyst. The team had been reviewing bulk metadata from Google under a geofence warrant, a controversial but increasingly used method where police request data on every device that was active near a crime scene during a specific time frame. One user caught their attention. Eric Vance, 24, lived in the same apartment building as Travis. He had no criminal record, no link to the victim, but Eric's search history from the night of the murder included where to stab someone to kill quickly. Do people die instantly from one stab? How deep does a knife have to go to hit the heart? What does it feel like to stab someone? The timestamps? Between 12:55 a.m. and 1:20 a.m., less than 2 hours after Travis's death. The most disturbing part? He used voice-to-text on some of the queries, whispering them into his phone. From Google to GPS. Investigators pulled Eric's phone data with a court order. What they found built a chilling digital map. 11:27 p.m. Eric's GPS places him in the parking garage, near the dumpsters where Travis's body was later found. 11:33 p.m. His fitness tracker shows a sudden heart rate spike and rapid steps, consistent with adrenaline and flight. 12:55 a.m. to 1:20 a.m. The morbid search queries begin. 3 a.m. Eric deletes Google Chrome from his phone, but the damage was done. Google retains search logs even after apps are deleted. The interrogation. Detectives brought Eric in for questioning. He seemed calm at first, even helpful. "I heard about the murder. Terrible stuff. Never met the guy though." When shown his search history, he stammered, I was writing a book, a horror book. I was doing research." But when asked to produce drafts of his supposed novel, Eric couldn't provide a single file. Then came the forensic bombshell. Tiny blood droplets found on the inner hem of one of his jackets tested positive for Travis Long's DNA. Now the digital evidence had physical backup. A chilling confession. Faced with the mounting pressure, Eric asked for a lawyer. But later, in a recorded phone call to his cousin from jail, he made a shocking admission. "It wasn't supposed to happen. I just wanted to see what it felt like how people do it. You ever just wonder?" The call was used in court. It erased any doubt. Prosecutors labeled him a voyeur of violence. Not someone driven by rage or revenge, but curiosity. When curiosity becomes motive. During the trial, Eric's search history became the central evidence. "He didn't just plan it," the prosecutor told the jury. "He fantasized about it, researched it, executed it, and then looked it up again, like checking the score of a game." Psychologists testified that Eric may have suffered from violent ideation, a condition linked to certain personality disorders, but he was ruled competent to stand trial. Defense attorneys argued the crime was spontaneous, the act of a disturbed man, not premeditated. The jury disagreed. After just 4 hours of deliberation, they found Eric Vance guilty of second-degree murder. The aftermath. Eric was sentenced to 35 years in prison. Travis's mother, Karen Long, spoke at the sentencing. "My son's life wasn't a science experiment. He was a brother, a friend, a human being. And this man treated him like a question to be answered." She later started a digital campaign called #SearchResponsibly, calling for tech platforms to better flag dangerous patterns in search behavior. Google declined to comment, citing user privacy policies. A digital diary of death. Eric's case exposed something darker than digital footprints. It revealed digital psychology. In a world where we search for everything, how to cook salmon, how to tell if you're in love, some people are searching how to kill and hoping no one notices. But in the hands of skilled investigators, those late-night questions become answers. And in Eric's case, his curiosity became his confession. The bigger picture. By 2022, Google had received over 25,000 geofence warrants across the US. Digital privacy advocates warn this could infringe on innocent users. But law enforcement argues it's becoming a powerful new form of evidence, especially in cases without eyewitnesses or cameras. Eric Vance is now a case study in search-driven convictions taught in police academies and forensic programs. His mistake? He thought no one was watching his search bar, but his phone was recording every keystroke. Where is the carotid artery? That was the Google search Marcus Dean typed on his phone at 9:17 p.m. His ex-girlfriend, 26-year-old Jasmine Taylor, was killed at 10:44 p.m. The cause of death? A deep slash to the neck, severing her carotid artery. A toxic relationship turned deadly. Jasmine and Marcus had been on again, off again for nearly 5 years. Friends say their relationship was passionate but toxic. He always needed to be in control. Jasmine's best friend, Alicia, later told the court. He tracked her location, her texts, everything. When she left him, he lost it. Jasmine had broken up with Marcus for good in July 2021. She blocked his number and moved into a new apartment in Columbus, Ohio. But Marcus still found ways to contact her. Fake numbers, Venmo notes, burner accounts. In late September, Jasmine reported him for harassment. She never got a restraining order. The night of the murder. On the night of October 3rd, Jasmine had dinner with her coworkers. She left the restaurant around 9:45 p.m., walked to her car, and drove home. What she didn't know, Marcus was already waiting outside her apartment. At 10:12 p.m., a Ring doorbell camera across the street recorded a man in a hoodie ducking behind a parked car. At 10:42 p.m., Jasmine arrived. By 10:44 p.m., she was dead, attacked just feet from her front door. A neighbor heard a scream but didn't see the attacker clearly. Police arrived to find Jasmine lying in a pool of blood. Her purse and phone were untouched. This wasn't a robbery. It was personal. The search that told the story. Marcus Dean wasn't arrested until 5 days later. What tied him to the scene wasn't just surveillance footage or witness accounts. It was his Google search timeline. Police subpoenaed his digital data, and the results painted a real-time murder diary. 8:04 p.m. How to sneak into someone's apartment complex unnoticed. 8:26 p.m. How to disable a Ring doorbell camera. 8:49 p.m. Can deleted location history be recovered? 9:17 p.m. Where is the carotid artery? 10:03 p.m. How long can someone survive a neck stab? 10:46 p.m. Do apartment cameras have night vision? 11:11 p.m. How to get blood out of hoodie? 11:22 p.m. How long before a body is found if left outside overnight? Every search was time-stamped. Every query lined up with Jasmine's final moments. The evidence stacks up. Marcus claimed he was home watching Netflix, but his phone told a different story. Cell tower pings placed him in Jasmine's neighborhood from 9:35 to 11:15 p.m. His fitness tracker recorded an intense burst of movement, like sprinting, at exactly 10:45 p.m. His car's GPS system logged a route from his home to Jasmine's apartment and back. Then, there were the gloves and hoodie found in a dumpster behind his apartment. Small traces of Jasmine's blood were discovered inside the glove fibers. The search that solved the case. What made the case truly airtight was the psychological timeline built from his search history. The prosecution presented a split-screen video to the jury. Left side, Jasmine's real-time movements, restaurant, drive home. Right side, Marcus's Google searches. As Jasmine left dinner, he searched, "Can blood be traced after 24 hours?" As she drove home, he searched, "Can you be charged with murder if there are no witnesses?" Just before her estimated time of death, he searched carotid artery location. And after her body was discovered, he searched, "How long does it take to get DNA results from a crime scene?" The trial. In court, Marcus showed no emotion. His lawyer tried to argue that the searches were morbid curiosity, that Marcus had merely fantasized about violence but hadn't acted on it. But when the forensic expert walked the jury through his own words, his own clicks, and his own path to the crime, there was no room left for doubt. The closing argument from the prosecutor was simple. He didn't need to write a confession. He searched it. He mapped it. He planned her death with the help of Google. And he left a trail so clear it's as if he filmed it himself. Guilty by the algorithm. Marcus Dean was found guilty of first-degree premeditated murder and sentenced to life without parole. Jasmine's sister wept in court as the verdict was read. He thought he could hide in the dark, but Google never sleeps. Her family has since petitioned for stronger digital stalking laws, citing how Marcus used tech to track, monitor, and ultimately murder Jasmine. The rise of digital timelines. Marcus's case has been cited in law enforcement seminars as a textbook example of using search data as intent evidence, creating a real-time timeline from digital breadcrumbs, how even deleted searches can be recovered and used in court. It also raised critical questions about how tech platforms can better detect when a user's search pattern becomes disturbing or dangerous. Final thoughts. When search history becomes a murder weapon. This 4-part series has shown us one undeniable truth. In today's world, your search history is your story. For investigators, it's not just what's in your house. It's what's on your phone. Not just fingerprints, but key presses. And for killers like Marcus Dean, Eric Vance, Nathan Benson, and Brian Hall, their own words, typed in panic or obsession, sealed their fate. Because no matter how careful they thought they were, Google remembered everything. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Hit the notification bell for more true crime story.